Hello everybody, Jordan Ghastly here, and today is not really an exciting day. It's November 11th, so it's Armistice Day. If you're familiar with Armistice Day or World War I, that's whenever the Central Powers and the Allied Powers came to an agreement to stop the war of World War I. It wouldn't officially end until the next year in 1919, whenever the Treaty of Versailles was signed, but November 11th was Armistice Day, and that's the day that the fighting stopped in World War I, if you didn't know that. So that's something I wasn't prepared to talk about on camera. But other than that, it is not a very interesting day around the Ghastly household. However, tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day because the PlayStation 5 is getting released, and I was lucky enough month ago, 2 months ago, something like that, to secure a pre-order, and it's completely paid off. I made a deal with myself that I would only pay out of pocket the $50 down payment deposit at my local GameStop, and then everything else, I just had to sell stuff off to pay it off. So I've only been out of pocket about 50, maybe 60 bucks for the entire thing so far. But yeah, everything else I just sold old stuff on eBay, just an old action figures, old toys, old video games, and it's paid off, so I'm super happy, and I didn't have to scrounge up all that money. Yay! But I thought what I would talk about in this video is just not the evolution of the systems, but all of the PlayStation systems. Like, I myself grew up with a Nintendo, and then I had a Sega Genesis. I never had a Super Nintendo growing up. I do have one now. That's only because whenever Chelsea Ghastly and I moved in together, she had a Super Nintendo, and she was able to, I guess, bring it with her, because I think her and her brother shared one. But we now have the Ghastly family Super Nintendo. But I never had the Super Nintendo, and I had a Sega Genesis instead. And then after that, I got a PlayStation, and I stopped playing video games for a little bit. And because that's when I bought my guitar, and that's when I started to get heavily into music, and I wanted to start a band, and that was the cool thing to do. It was I want to go and play guitar. I don't want to play video games. And then I kind of got suckered back into playing video games, and the PlayStation, the first PlayStation, the PlayStation 1, was my system that I owned at the time, and that's the one that, whenever I have fond memories of playing video games, that's the one that I always remember. It's playing the first PlayStation. I don't own a PlayStation 1 anymore, although I do at some point want to repurchase one just for the retro video game suite. That's our guest room, which we're going to go over there in a second. But I kind of want one just to say that I have one. I have a couple of games for it, but nothing like I used to have. Nothing like I used to have. But you know what? Let's just go ahead and let's go check it out. And this is where all of our retro video game systems are. I wish I had a nicer setup for it at the moment, but I don't. I just acquired a Nintendo 64 thanks to my buddy Jake. There's a Sega Genesis. There's the aforementioned Super Nintendo. Some old laptops. And PlayStation 2 right up here. And all of our games are right on this shelf. I also have these classic editions that Nintendo came out with a couple of years ago. This one got super hard to find for a minute. This one was a little bit easier to find, but I think it's kind of hard to find now. And since I'm a sucker for a Sega Genesis, I went and I bought the Sega Genesis Mini. So like I said, the PlayStation was my main video game system. It's been my all-time favorite video game system to this day. And I still remember the first time I played a PlayStation. Back in the year 1996, if you can remember that far back. My mom, when we lived in South Louisiana, my mom hadn't got remarried yet, and she was the manager of an apartment complex. And because she was a manager of the complex, we had to live on property. Now, I stayed home from school one day, and I just kind of had a sore throat. It was more than likely allergies, but my mom was like, just stay home. You'll be fine. Our neighbor was outside hanging out, and he was talking to us, and he was telling us about this video game system that he got, and that he had a really cool baseball game, and if I wanted to play it. And Mom's like, yeah, I got work to do, so you can go ahead and go play video games. I was like, okay, cool. So I went in. His name was Dan. Super cool guy. I don't know whatever happened to him. Dan, if you're watching this, hope you're well, buddy. Anyway, so because I was staying home from school for a sore throat, he was hungry. He's like, hey man, let's go around the corner to Burger King and we'll get like a chocolate shake and burgers, and then we'll come back and play some baseball on the PlayStation. I was like, this is the greatest day of my life. Of course, 13-year-old me was like, I get to stay home from school, I get chocolate shakes, and I get to play video games? Am I being punked? This is way before punked was a thing. I don't know why I said that. But, so I was like, yeah, sure. Burger King, chocolate shakes, video games. It was a really nice day. So of course, after playing that, I was hooked on the PlayStation, and I thought to myself, I want a PlayStation. And all I had was a Sega Genesis at the time. And of course, like, going from the 16-bit graphics to like the 3D looking graphics on a PlayStation, I'm like, well, I don't want to play any of these games anymore. Meh. So I had to wait. I don't know however many months it was. Months and months and months until Christmas, and my dad asked me, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I want a Sony PlayStation. And of course he was like, no, I'm not getting you one of those. I'm like, then why did you ask me what I wanted for Christmas if you're not going to get one for me? And but that's something that my dad always does. Like, my dad's always like, hey, what do you want? And then you'd say what you want. He was like, nah, I'm not getting one of those. And then pulls through, and for Christmas that year, I got a Sony PlayStation. And that was also the first system where they didn't have like a packed-in game, or at least for me, didn't have a packed-in game, because when I got my not my Super Nintendo, when I got my Nintendo, it had Super Mario Brothers packed in, Super Mario's and Duck Hunt. And when I got my Sega Genesis for Christmas, it came with Sonic 2. So of course, I'm thinking, oh, well, it's gonna have a game with it. It did not. Luckily, my dad knew that it didn't come with a game, so in addition to getting me the PlayStation console, he got me the Mortal Kombat trilogy game that had just come out. And man, I played Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. I can't even remember, like, I don't want to fathom how many hours I put in that game. And it's not a relatively long game. I just played it a lot. So of course I was like, yes! And something else that my dad gave to me and my siblings was a Christmas card with some cash in it. So of course, like, the cash, I was like, well, I've just got this PlayStation. Why don't I just go over to the mall, to the video game store in the mall, which was a Babbage's. I don't know if Babbage's is still around. I think they were all bought out by GameStop. If you have a Babbage's in your area, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I want to see if those still exist. But I distinctly remember the cash that I got. It gave me a $100 bill. This was also the first time I remember ever getting a $100 bill for anything. After we had Christmas at my dad's house, this wasn't on Christmas Day, this was probably like a couple days before because my dad was going to be out of town. I got dropped back off at home, and we lived right across, not even away, like the parking lot from the apartment complex that I lived in and the parking lot to our town's mall shared a parking lot which was just bisected by a fence. So I could just jump the fence and be at the mall. So once I got home, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to turn this $100 bill into some video games. So that's exactly what I did. Now, after I got dropped off from home, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I went and I took the PlayStation, I put it upstairs. I didn't even open it, didn't even hook it up, because I knew I wanted to spend this $100 bill on some video games. And that's exactly what I did. I hopped the fence, I got to the mall, I went to Babbage's, and I picked up a copy of the Beast Wars video game that came out for the PlayStation. I know, big shocker, right? Jordan, you bought a Transformers video game? I did, and the game wasn't that good, or it ended up not being that good. But then I found a really cool video game that I had played in one of the whatchamacallem, the little demo stations, that's what I was looking for, called Pandemonium, which was kind of like this weird 3D side-scroller game for the PlayStation. It ended up getting a sequel to it, and I never played that one, but the first one, I remember playing it. It was really, really fun, so I picked that up super cheap, and then I was like, okay, I'm set. I've got these 3 games, let's go. and I bought them and I played the heck out of them. But as I got older, my interest in video games started to wane. The next Christmas, I actually got a guitar, and that's kind of where my focus went. I was super into the Beatles. They were my favorite band. They still are my favorite band. But my focus was like, I don't want to do video games, because in my mind, like, that was kid stuff. Where was I? All right, that's right. My interest in video games started to wane, and I just didn't enjoy it as much as I used to. I wanted to start a band. I wanted to be the Beatles. I wanted to be the teenage John Lennon at the time. And like retrospectively, that was a ridiculous claim. I probably shouldn't have said I wanted to do that. But that's like that was my mindset at the time. I wanted to be in a band that was as popular as the Beatles, not realizing how exactly popular the Beatles were. So I got a guitar and I started playing music, and my friends started playing guitar. And then I went to a friend's house. And my friend Matt, who's one of my best friends still to this day, he had rented a game for this Super Nintendo called the Mario RPG. Now, I was completely unaware of the concept of RPGs. All the video games I had played leading up to that have been pretty much your straightforward side-scrollers, shooter, jump on mushroom and turtle guy, like just standard stuff. So he rented the Mario RPG, and I got to play it, and I was like, man, this is actually kind of fun. I really like this turn-based battle style. And that kind of low-key got me back into video games. So once he ended up playing, or getting that, he got a PlayStation around the same time as well, or like a family member of his got a PlayStation around that same time as well. I started to realize that there were RPGs for the PlayStation, and I thought, well, let's see if I can find some or pick some up. So I ended up buying Wild Arms for the PlayStation, and probably to this day, what is one of my favorite video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Now, after Final Fantasy VII came out, like, that was pretty much it. I was hooked. I played Final Fantasy VII so long. When I say we, like all of my friends in Louisiana at the time, specifically me and Matt, and our friend Brandon, were constantly playing it. We were constantly looking stuff up. This was also like the early days of home internet, so looking up secrets on the internet was something that was very new. We had to go out and buy the old strategy guides. And so if you got stuck, you couldn't just like Google it. Like, that wasn't a thing just yet. So you either had to know somebody who had a secret and they could tell the secret to you, or you had to go and find some of these really interesting strategy guides and have to like look up the secrets. But we put so many hours into that game alone. Like, that system for me alone is, or that game for me is worth like the system alone. And I've played just about every Final Fantasy since then. Final Fantasy VIII, probably my least favorite, not as good as 7. The 9 came out, I loved 9, and 10 is kind of what made me want to get the PlayStation 2, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But so I started to branch myself from other RPGs. I mentioned I had played the first Wild Arms. I still never finished it, but I played it and I really liked it. Then came this game, Lunar the Silver Star Story Complete. Now, it's called Complete, but this is not the complete version of the game. This is just the bare bones game discs, as well as, I think, a soundtrack, maybe? A soundtrack and a making of DVD. But this ended up being one of my favorite games on the system, and it's actually supposed to come inside of a box. Hold on, let me pull the... This is the instruction manual that it came with. It is a large hardcover manual here. Let me flip through some of the pages. Look at that. And everything was supposed to be stacked on top of each other, and it was supposed to be put in a box, which I am missing. So if anybody here has a box for Lunar the Silver Star Story Complete, holla at your boy, because I want one. Anyway, this was one of the greatest games that I ever played. I loved the art style in this game. I loved the battle system in this game. The story was great. The cutscenes were great. And I absolutely just loved this. And man, I wish I could complete it. I kind of wish that they would release these games in digital form so I could get them on the PlayStation 4 or, well, hopefully maybe in the future the PlayStation 5. Also, here's my copy of Final Fantasy VII. I currently have Greatest Hits. It's got the green label on it. My original copy, which I no longer have sadly, was a release copy. I think I got it within a week or two of it coming out, and it had the black label right here where it's all green. It would be black instead, and I guess they refer to that now as the black labels. And they're kind of a little bit more sought out if you're a retro video game collector. My copy is long gone whenever I sold my PlayStation the first go-round. But I have a Greatest Hits copy, so it's there if I ever need it. I have digital copies of it too, but a hard copy for this is super nice. Those are the only two PlayStation 1 games I have. Throughout the years, I kind of go back and forth on collecting retro video games. Sometimes I find a good deal on one, and then I'm like, cool, I'll get it. And then sometimes I don't touch it, and then like 2 years goes by, and I'm like, well, I haven't played it, I might as well sell it. And I'll trade it to a friend, or I'll sell it off or something. So my video game collection kind of sways all the time, but some other games that I was like super into was the first Silent Hill. I remember hanging out whenever I first moved up to Georgia. My stepbrother's friend, and myself were all hanging out, and we were playing Silent Hill in the dark, and it was kind of like our first like bonding experience. So I have a lot of sentimental reasons why I love Silent Hill, which is kind of a weird thing to say about a horror game. And at risk of making this video super long, the year 2000 came, and that introduced the world to the PlayStation 2, and I really, really wanted one, but they were $200. Oh, could you imagine? Like, the PlayStation at that point was only $100, and that was kind of the going rate for video game systems at the time. And I remember whenever it said PlayStation 2 is going to be $200, everyone was like, man, that's twice as much. That's going to be a lot of money. Also, my first job was at KB Toys, and if you remember KB Toys, they were a mall chain of toy stores. They always charged way more for toys than they needed to, and whenever the PlayStation 2 came out, they were charging like $225 for it. So if you wanted one, and you wanted to buy it from KB Toys, you had to fork over an extra 25 bones. Now, I didn't actually get my first PlayStation 2 until a year after its release in 2001. I had been working at KB Toys for about 2 years at that point, and for Christmas, my mom said, what's the one thing you want for Christmas? Like, what is if you could take anything or pick anything for Christmas, what would you want? And I said, I want a PlayStation 2. And then my mom and my stepdad said, no. My stepdad wasn't really a big fan of video games. He only allowed them in the house because we were able to play them on the weekends. Like, we weren't allowed to do anything during the week whenever school was going on. And over the years, he kind of softened up about that because I kept my grades up and I was a good student. So he didn't really see an issue with video games being in the house. But for those first few years, he was very adamant about just like, no video games. So I said, I want a PlayStation 2, and they were like, no! And I thought, man. All right, looks like I'm just gonna have to buy one myself. Christmas had come and gone, I didn't get the PlayStation 2, but between all of the Christmas cash I had received, as well as not one, but 2 paychecks that I received from working at the toy store, I was able to go ahead and buy a PlayStation 2. My stepdad still didn't want it in the house, but oh boy, was I a rebel. So I said, oh fine, I won't buy one. And I totally did. It was probably in the house for 3 or 4 weeks before they even noticed. And then my mom found out and she was like really mad. She's like, you were told not to buy one of those. I'm like, it's the only thing I wanted. And I don't understand why you're mad because my grades are good, I'm getting straight A's, and I just want to hang out and play a video game or two every once in a while. And then whenever I kind of presented that argument to them, they were like, all right, you're a good kid. Just don't let your grades slip. And luckily they didn't. I was a really good student up until the end of high school, but that is where I got the PlayStation 2. And I remember the first day that I got it, and I had it unpacked, I unboxed it, I hooked it up to the television, which, oddly enough, this is that original television that I had it hooked up to. This was my childhood, or not childhood, but I guess teenagehood. That's a word, maybe. television that I had in my room, and I still have it because it's the only thing I can hook these systems up to. And it's still, this is only a 25-year-old TV, I think, at this point. Maybe it's a 20-year-old TV. But I remember hooking it up and pressing power and seeing this for the first time. These are some of the games that I still have for the PlayStation 2. I've got a copy of Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. This was a sequel to Final Fantasy VII with the fan-favorite character of Vincent, which was super fun. It wasn't turn-based, but you got to revisit all of the Final Fantasy VII characters with PlayStation 2 graphics, so that was really super fun. I only played it the once, and I held on to it, and I kind of want to play it again. I might have to. I have a couple of these Evil Dead games. I don't remember ever finishing them. I bought them. I got them super cheap years ago. They've just kind of been sitting on the shelf. And I don't know. I think they're just too cool to sell. So I decided to hold on to them. And I also have the Haunted Mansion video game that came out around the same time as the film. Now this is not a direct film-to-game story. This is actually a completely different story. It's a fun game, and the game is absolutely much better than the movie was. So I highly recommend the game. Do you guys think the movie theaters will let me cash in this movie pass to go see Haunted Mansion on the big screen? And the last game I have is Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. I bought this when it first came out, and if you are fans of the original Scooby-Doo series, like the classic Scooby-Doo cartoons, this is a definite must-play. It plays like an old Scooby-Doo episode. There's a laugh track in there. There's hijinks. There's all the classic monsters are in there. And Don Knotts even makes an appearance or two in here. So highly, highly recommended if you're a Scooby-Doo fan. And I said it earlier, but the game that finally pushed me over the edge for pulling the trigger of getting the PlayStation 2 was Final Fantasy X. I loved Final Fantasy VII, I liked Final Fantasy VIII, and I loved Final Fantasy IX, but this was the first Final Fantasy that had voice acting. Are you kidding me? Boom! Of course I had to buy it, so I bought it. And I played the heck out of it. Some other really fun PlayStation 3 games that I enjoyed was Silent Hill 3. Like, that was super creepy. I never got around to playing Silent Hill 2, although I always wanted to. I should also note that between the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, I actually sold off my entire video game collection because I wanted to buy a bass. Whenever I moved up to Georgia and I joined my friend's garage band, they needed a bass player, and I didn't own a bass. And the quickest way I could get one is if I sold all of my video games. So that's exactly what I did. I sold my PlayStation and all of my RPGs. I got about $300 for them, and I ended up buying a bass. And I was in that band for a few years. We ended up becoming like a Beatles cover band, which of course, like 13-year-old me was like, yeah! And then 16-year-old me was like, cool! And that was that. And then in 2005, Sony finally released the PlayStation 3, and it was $600, and it was super expensive! I did not get my first PlayStation 3 until 2008. This is actually my second model. My first model I just played so much that it actually just died. So I ended up going from the original fat system to this is the skinnier system. It's not the final model. This is like the in-between model, I guess. But check out my my wallpaper here. So anytime I play my PlayStation 3, I have Grumpy Cat just judging me, which is fair. Rest in peace, tartar sauce. Like I said, I didn't get my first PlayStation 3 until 2008, and that was actually the year that Chelsea, Ghastly, and I started dating, and there's not really much of a story. Like, I was moving out of my parents' house, and I had the money to get one, and I bought one, and that was that. I played a lot of really fun games on it, so a lot of really fun franchises came out on the PlayStation 3, like the Uncharted series, which I've really liked. The Silent Hill games have been coming out on it, but I really fell in love with the Assassin's Creed games, and that's because I think it was around whenever Chelsea and I started dating that I decided that I wanted to go to school and get my degree in history. So the Assassin's Creed games, even though they do take a lot of liberties, they were still really fun historical fiction games, and I really, really love those games. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the one with the Vikings, came out, and I want to get it, but I'm still playing Odyssey 2 years later. Bought all of the DLC for Odyssey, and I've been playing that, and after I finish filming this video, I'm going to play some more. But yeah, I've had a PlayStation 3 since 2008, and I like it because it's kind of my makeshift PlayStation 1. Since I can't get hard copies of the PlayStation 1 games because a lot of them are highly sought after and a lot of collectors want them, you can pay a pretty penny for them, which some of them I'm willing to do, but others I'm just kind of like, I can deal with a digital copy. So a lot of my PlayStation 1 games that I've downloaded from the PlayStation Network are on this system, and I'm not going to get rid of the system, at least not anytime soon. So unless Sony will allow me to transfer all of these games to my PlayStation 5, which I highly doubt they'll do, Sony, if you're listening, make that happen. Your move. And I'm not even going to lie, this is the absolute only PlayStation 3 game that I own now. Whenever this came out, I actually bought the giant special edition that comes with the Hofner guitar and the drum set and the microphone, and we even went out of our way to find the John Lennon controller, which is shaped like his black and white Rickenbacker from the early 60s. This is the only PlayStation 3 hard copy game I have, and this is the only one that we still have hanging around. I don't know why I opened it. But this is the only PlayStation 3 hard copy game that I own. You know what? That last clip was a lie. It turns out that I own a copy of Rock Band 2, and I have no idea where that came from. It was just sitting on the shelf. And that brings us to the PlayStation 4, which is currently hooked up in the entertainment center here. And I have played tons of things on the PlayStation 4. They finished the Uncharted series on that system. There's still tons of Assassin's Creed games coming out for it. The story behind the PlayStation 4 really isn't that impressive. Like, it showed up for pre-order, and I went and I pre-ordered it, and then I picked it up. So that's how that went. So yeah, I've played tons of games on the system, and I still actively play it and actively enjoy it. But much like the PlayStation 3, this is not the first model. I did have the first model, and I actually upgraded to the slimmer model, which has a terabyte hard drive. The original, I guess, launch PlayStation 4s had a 500 gigabyte hard drive. So there was like some kind of deal at GameStop where you traded in, you'd be able to get the terabyte system on sale, came with Spider-Man and blah, 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 blah. I've got the slim model with the bigger hard drive. As far as games that I have for the PlayStation 4, I said that I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series, so I do have Assassin's Creed Origins. It's the one that takes place in Egypt. And I actually did go all out and buy the super special edition for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's the one that takes place in classical Greece during the Peloponnesian Wars. I am still playing this, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to play it here in a little bit. Chelsea got me Final Fantasy 15 for Christmas one year. I really, really enjoyed it. Probably my favorite one since 9, I would think. I picked up a copy of a remake. This was originally a PlayStation 2 game called Destroy All Humans. It's actually kind of like a really fun mid-century modern alien invasion, like flying saucer alien invasion type game. So if you're like a big fan of those 1950s sci-fi movies, this would be right up your alley. Of course, I have the Transformers Devastation, Generation 1 Transformers video game. Sign me up. Last Christmas, Chelsea got me Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I absolutely loved this game, and I kind of hope they do a sequel to it. I do have Spider-Man, which I just finished. It's been sitting on the shelf for quite a while. I really liked it, and when I get the PlayStation 5, I'm going to get the Miles Morales. I talked about this game on one of my quarantining vlogs months ago, but I did pick up the Final Fantasy VII Special Edition, or the Final Fantasy VII Remake Special Edition. So those are the current games that I have for the PlayStation 4, and I don't really hold on to games. Like I feel like I trade games, and then whenever I get them, or whenever I see them super cheap, I buy them back, and then they kind of just sit there. So, but these are titles that are not going anywhere, at least not anytime soon. So now all that's left is to go tomorrow morning and pick up the PlayStation 5, hook it up to the TV, And I also picked something up. This was kind of an impulse buy. I saw that they released the accessories about a week or two early, so I decided to pick up an HD camera for the PlayStation 5. Now, I am not a video game streamer. However, I have kind of been contemplating starting my own Twitch channel. I mean, I do have a Twitch account. I've not done anything with it. I kind of just go and subscribe to my friends' channels just to support them. But I kind of been curious about the streaming game, so I picked this up, so who knows, maybe there will be a Jordan Ghastly streaming channel in the future. Is that something you want to see? I don't know, I feel like I'd be the most boring video game player. If you want to see me stream some video games, go ahead and leave a comment down below.
Well, hello, it is the next morning, and I am in the parking lot of GameStop, waiting for them to open in about 10 minutes. There's a line of a few people. I feel like they only have enough PlayStations to fulfill pre-orders, so I don't think there's going to be a crazy long line and a giant wave of people thinking they can get a PS5 today. I just woke up like 30 minutes ago too, so that's fun. Anyway, I'm not going to film in there just because I want to get in and I want to get out, but the next time you'll see me, I'll have a PS5 with me. Oh, alright, let's go get it home.
Alright, there it is. And this box is massive. Like, look, my hand for scale. This is giant. Hold on a second. Okay. Oh, there you go. There's Baxter for scale. He was annoyed. He was sleeping. I woke him up for that dumb joke. Before I hook this up, though, I think I need some coffee. Alright. Alright, let's unbox this thing. Alright, and you open up the box, and it's another box! Alright. Alright, well, the little IKEA icon here recommends that I take this part out first, lay it down, then slide the system out. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, we're going to put that off to the side. And then... oh god, this thing is massive. Look at that. My cats will be happy about this box, though, I can tell you that right now. Alright, so this is what it looks like currently. I don't want to do this with one hand, so I'm going to set the camera back. Oh man. And there it is. This is heavy. This is way heavier than I think it needs to be. Alright, let me clean up some stuff around here. And I think it has this really nice look to it. I know a lot of people were making fun of the way the system looked online, saying that it looked like a router, and it does kind of look like a router when it's standing up like this, but I think it kind of looks like a mid-century modern airport to me. I don't know why. Alright, there's the little spot right there for you to put the PlayStation stand, and these white covers have a nice matte finish to them. And then the inside portion that's in black plastic is all glossy. And then you got this crazy looking vent. I don't know how well you can see it, but you got this crazy looking vent. Kind of looks like an H.R. Giger painting. But I'm going to put that right there. And then we have this box right here, which has power cable. Need that. Instruction manuals. The stand, which will allow you to hold it or have it stand upright like this or sideways. I'm going to go sideways, so still going to use that. Definitely need it. And the HDMI cable, which is specific to the place. I mean, I guess you can use any HDMI cord, but I think specifically that one does something with the system. And let's see, there's a charging cable for the controller. And speaking of the controller, got it right here. I've been looking forward to checking this out. Ooh, that's nice. It's got this really interesting texture on the back of it, and it makes it for a much better grip than the PS4 controller. And I thought the PS4 controller was a big upgrade from the PS3 controller. Huh. Interesting. All right, I'm gonna get this thing hooked up. All right, one more shot before I hook it up. This is this is the PlayStation 4, and this is the PlayStation 5. Look at how massive that is. It is so massive that it just barely fits in this section of my entertainment center. I might actually end up moving it down here. I might have to kick Jabba out of his palace and put this down here so it has a little bit more airflow, because I don't want it to overheat. Alright, let's turn this bad boy on and start transferring data from the PS4 to the PS5. Alright, that took about a minute or so to figure out, and my data is transferring from the PS4 to the PS5. Alright, well, it turns out I wasn't transferring data. I just had to hit a button within the 5-minute time limit. But I had to go get an Ethernet cable to transfer all my stuff. So that's what I'm doing now. Alright, there we go. Transfer that data. Yeah, transfer it. Good. You are just completely uninterested, aren't you? You're more interested in those leaves outside. Woo, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Press the PlayStation button. I did. New version of your wireless controller device is available. Sure. Connect your controller to the USB cable. I just unhooked it. Alright, it looks like I am all set to go now. So I've got all these transferred over. It looks like, because I was one of the few holdouts that still had the playable trailer for the defunct Silent Hills game that Guillermo del Toro was supposed to be doing with Kojima. But it looks like that will be a casualty of the data transfer. That is a bummer. Oh well. It was fun while it lasted. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this bad boy looks like on the 4K display. Alright, so it looks like it's copying and installing the game onto the system. So we'll check back shortly. Oh, it's time. Alright, so I got a little bit of ahead of myself. I thought that all of the save data would just transfer over. Turns out all the DLC stuff I have to re-download. So that's what I'm doing now. But I do like the new user interface. I think that's pretty cool. Hey everybody, I've had a few days with the PlayStation 5 now, and this isn't really a review, but I'm just going to keep it short. I really like it. I think the system is great. I like the new controller. Let's take a look at that. I didn't realize how much I would really like this new controller. The layout of the handles, or the grips, whatever you want to call them, just feels really nice. It forms to the hand really well. I like the plastic-coated buttons, although I do kind of miss the color-coded buttons of the square, circle, triangle, and X. And the touchpad is nice. You can see that the controller is currently on as it is lit up right in the middle there. The one thing that I kind of wish would have added to the aesthetic of the controller and kind of break up all this black is the PlayStation button right there, right in the middle. I think it would have been cool if they made the button in the old multicolor PlayStation logo with like the reds, the greens, and the yellows. I thought that would have been nice. Something else that's very interesting about this controller, and you can't really see it, so I'll drop a picture in, but this part of the grip or the handle is textured, and when you zoom in really, really close, you can see that the texture is all little tiny PlayStation symbols of the X, triangle, square, and circle, which I thought was a very nice touch. So the controller is A+, aside from a couple of just aesthetic things that I would have changed, but other than that, solid controller. The system itself also has that same textured patterns of the PlayStation symbols on the inside of those white matte plastic casing pieces. I'll drop a photo in here as well. I didn't end up playing the system right when I got it because I had to go straight to work, so I couldn't play it till I got home. And the first thing I did was I popped Assassin's Creed in, and I meant to film myself playing that, but I just got sucked into it, so I didn't. But I went back and filmed a couple clips just for this video, so there you go. Here's a clip of me playing Assassin's Creed. And as far as the PlayStation 4, or it being a PlayStation 4 game, it upscales really nice. I think it looks beautiful. Here's a nice dreary day in Kefalonia. And please don't mind the pantsless statue of Zeus on Kefalonia in Assassin's Creed. But overall, the upscale on this is stunning. I thought this game looked great on the PlayStation 4. It looks even better on the PlayStation 5. And the actual dedicated PlayStation 5 game that I got was the Spider-Man Miles Morales. And it looks great. Here's me just swinging around New York City in the winter. I'm looking forward to playing this. I just started this last night, and I think I'm only maybe 30 minutes into the game right now. But it is going to be a really fun game, as I really enjoyed the previous Spider-Man game. So thank you for coming along with me on my PlayStation journey through every PlayStation system I've ever owned. This is a long one, so if you stuck around, I really appreciate it. You know, I say this every video, there are millions of videos on YouTube, and you could have spent your time watching any one of those, but you spent your time watching this one, and that means a lot to me. So thank you so much. If this is your first time here, and you like what you saw, please go ahead and like the video, and hit the subscribe button. You know, I upload videos probably once every week, once every 2 weeks or so, as time permits, and if you click the notification button, it'll let you know when I upload. So go ahead and do that, and if you like what you saw, share it with your friends. I really appreciate you coming back. It means the world to me. But right now I have some video games to go and play. So until next time, we'll see you real soon. Stay spooky.